Okay, Ms. Gray, you want to take attendance?
Greg Zara,
Present.
Lou Ferraro,
Present.
David Wallace,
Present.
Tom Zika,
Present.
Rick Coretta.
Present. Okay, let's rise, say the pledge of allegiance, a moment of silence. I
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Please take a special moment to think of all the people who were hurt and killed in the Texas church shooting. Thank you. Thank you, everyone. Okay, we're here to open the public hearing on a matter of our 2018 preliminary budget. And if anyone would like to speak, just approach the mic and you'll have your time. Is there anyone who would like to speak?
Valerie Sandless, 2 Greenbelt Circle. More than speak, I guess I'm just asking for some clarification on the article in the paper and some of the numbers in the budget. So I guess I realize it's a tentative budget and subject to change. So my first question is, how can the general fund be down yet our tax rate is going up? So from reading in the paper, it would increase from 361 to 609 per thousand. I don't know. I'm just asking for some clarification on it. Why that would be if we do have a decrease in spending.
Well, we put some things in the budget this year that I thought were necessary, especially the 2.5 increase in employee salaries. And I thought that was necessary since they only got a 1%, and I value our employees very much, so that was my feeling they should get at. And we're keeping insurance costs at what they are this year, except for the one insurance, which we're going to a little higher plan. We're offering that to the employees, but employees who go to that better plan will have to buy into that at the higher rate. So they'll still pay the rate they paid last year, but because they go to a higher plan, they'll have to buy into that. So there is a cost to that, but that's it. I also felt that because, is Joe here yet? Joe will be here in our meeting. He'll be talking about some infrastructure. We felt that there's major infrastructure problems here for the last 50 years. I'm not putting the blame on anyone why that infrastructure was or wasn't replaced or fixed. Today we had a valve break on Bridge Street and Mechanic, and that valve was over 100 years old. We're looking at a point where we want to do some economic development, where infrastructure has to be ready for people to come in and be almost shovel ready, where people come in and they want to start a business here. We have to be ready for the infrastructure. We have to bring water to certain places, water and sewer to certain places. And that has to be up to 21st century standards, which it is not. Again, that valve that was in there might have predated 1900. So that's long time ago.
Yeah.
It's a 19th century valve. So it was the money that we hopefully get from Seneca Meadows. If it's the amount that we're budgeting, we want to keep $1 million out of that to put toward infrastructure repair. You heard about the problem we had down at the water plant this past week. There's problems that continue to crop up. We we did some projects this year at Rumsey Street and Miller that improved the water pressure on those blocks, and people had been complaining and concerned about their water pressure for years. There's a lot of there's a lot of water during storms going into the sanitary sewer systems. We have to get ahead on that. We might even have to start ensuring that people don't have illegal drains in their house, that they don't have open drains, so that water isn't infiltrated during storms into the sanitary sewer system. That's a project in and of itself. And so we really looking at a long-term process of making sure that in 10 years, the infrastructure, and we should probably come up with a long-term plan of where we are today and where we want to be in 3 years, where we want to be in 6 years in infrastructure repair, and that costs a lot of money. So, you know, that's the reason. Those monies that are generally used to keep the tax rate flat or just a little more, that much money isn't going into to reduce taxes this year. It's going to go into a fund where we can work on infrastructure when we're planning for next year and the years to come.
Yeah, and I did read that about the infrastructure, the $1 million for the infrastructure, which it does seem very logical. It seems like a great idea to use that. So again, if this is a question, not necessarily a clarification, but I think, are we basing this 2018 tentative budget on the potential $3 million that we would get from the landfill? And if so, what would what do we have in mind for the other $2 million in the budget?
Do you want to talk about that? What we budgeted this year?
The budget, right now, the budget's $1,150,000 for landfill revenue. Okay, we have been budgeting $2.3 million because history has not given us $3 million except for maybe 1 year.
Right.
And we're on that track maybe to do that this year. But in previous years, we have not. So we've only budgeted what we could budget, which we know we should get about $2.3 million, right? Okay. So we budgeted now this next year for half of that. The other $1,150,000 right now is slated to go into capital projects for infrastructure.
Okay. So essentially then this, the approximate 2.3 million, we've got the 1 million that's going to be slated for infrastructure work. And then that leaves, based on a 2.3 million, that leaves about like $1.3 million in the budget, as opposed to like the I guess was publicized, the $3 million potential landfill.
Well, this year, yes,
yes.
Potential. Yeah, we haven't got
Okay.
the fourth quarter check yet.
Okay.
But it looks like it's going to be pretty close, a little over that.
Okay.
Yeah.
So years ago, I budgeted 2.7, pushing 3 million, and the landfill revenue didn't come near that.
Okay.
Then you panic and have to find money.
Yeah, no,
So you
makes
better,
sense.
if it's our best guess, okay?
Yeah, that does make sense. So then I guess my question is, since we're in the final quarter, if we do get closer to that $3 million, would that then be put towards reducing taxes, or will we put that toward infrastructure, or we haven't really talked about that yet?
I basically would like a budget to be passed, and whatever we have the tax rate at, I feel the tax rate should be at that level that year, because we really need to start planning for the future and utilize that money in other areas. We can push into the general fund and utilize it as needed. And, you know, we have some bonds that we like to get down, pay off, things like that. So that money will be used.
Right.
But to reduce the tax rate, no, but the tax rate, on the other hand, might be reduced next year if we, you know, if we decide to give not as big raises and look at the insurance costs. I had mentioned that I was hoping that we could get into some kind of consortium countywide with the various towns and villages for insurance, because as you get a bigger pool into the insurance, those costs go naturally down because you're providing a service for more people. And that hasn't been done. That hasn't been looked at. People, you know, pretty parochial when it comes to their insurance. They like to keep with the same people. That's well and good, and we have very good insurance people we work with. But if we could get those costs down, I believe that's the way we should go in the future.
Right.
And that's just a thought. You know, any preceding board, we would have to work on that.
All right. So essentially, I think what I think I'm hearing is that the tax increase, the 3.61 to 6.09, is primarily due to the employee insurance benefits, et cetera.
Well, the 2.5% increase in employee salaries, I think if we value our employees, they got to serve. A lot of our employees are making under $20 an hour.
Right.
Under $20 an hour is between $30,000 and $40,000. $20 an hour is about $41,000 a year, and that simply is not enough to live on.
Right.
And we have to give our people a living wage and a wage to live in Seneca Falls.
Agreed. So that, I'm just saying, you know, just clarifying that it is the salary and the benefits
Yep.
for the employees that are essentially, we're accounting for the increase in the
Yeah.
taxes.
Yep.
Yes. Okay, great, thank you.
Thank you. You want to?
Okay. So,
You won't have to start in January.
all right, yeah. So the health insurance is really revenue neutral, because whatever increase will be carried by the,
Carrie, yes, that was,
can we be told what it would, I'm not disputing the fact that the employees need a raise, but can we know what that costs to do that for you know, town-wide for employees?
I saw the course, I can't pick it out from my head, Bev.
I can't pull it out of my head, I know what the general fund is.
Yeah, I can, we,
I mean, that's the one part of this that those of us who don't see the figures adding up, you know, to have that, I'm sure it's a big expense, but it would be helpful to know.
yeah, Bev, I could have brought it, I didn't tonight.
Okay.
Everything's in the budget, we could figure it out, it'll take me time to look at it. But we can get those figures out. Can we get an overview of that within the next few days?
You want an overview of overall insurance costs?
Insurance costs and salary increase. Okay?
So that was it's because we were operating on the $3 million, but you're not. So that really clarified where the confusion went. So that was really just
We'll
my
get
question.
those
Was a
exact
follow-up.
figures out, and they'll be available to the public. If you come in, we'll put them at the window, and they'll be available at the board office. Okay? Just state your name, Allison.
I'm Allison Stokes. I have a home on West Baird Street. I'm concerned about process, and the questions that I have come from my being here for the October meeting, when you were setting the dates for the different committees that would do different aspects of the budget. And then what I read in the paper, that there was then a new process that was not mentioned at the October meeting, that the town lawyer and Bev, as I understand it, were going to be leading and working on this. But that was never announced publicly at a meeting. And then I listened very carefully 2 times to your interview on Weber this week for what you had to say about the budget, and the fact that you had urged people, what more could you do? You told when, gave the dates, you told when, and people didn't show up. But it's my understanding that you didn't show up for most of them, that you went to the first meeting, then didn't go to other ones. And I'm wondering how you expect, you're the supervisor, the whole town board, I would think, would show up to budget meetings. And so when now in explaining where things are going, I heard you say again and again, I think it's important, I think it's important, I think it's important. And I know there hasn't been a special meeting since the October meeting. And it did come up in the Weber interview that, and I am very well aware about the difference between an open meeting and a public hearing. And a public hearing is focused on one topic, and an open meeting, if you have more than 2 people on the board meeting, then it becomes a meeting that must be an open meeting. So it seems to me, since there hasn't been a special meeting since then, some of these decisions must be being made by 2 people, and I think often we hear that it's you and the deputy supervisor, leader, discussing things, and then talking individually to people. And that came up in the interview as well, as there was a dispute about what might have been said, and you said I can't speak to a private conversation. But my point is a process point where, and you kept being very adamant about the fact that things are open, and they are open. But in my experience at coming to council meetings, the major issues are not discussed at monthly board meetings. The town hall, you hear from people, but then there's no discussion between the council members that we can sit and listen to. I'm wondering, I have questions about this budget. Is everybody on board with the budget? Is there an agreement on the budget? Did you ever, you couldn't possibly have all talked about it together because that would have been an open meeting that you had to announce. So it was, the town hall was one thing that happened, the Ludovico Sculpture Trail, the Seneca Meadows issue, this town hall was an issue. Huge issues happen where they're not discussed at this meeting. We discuss tiny little things, trucks and pipes and fine. But what about the big issues? We would like to hear what the different, you keep saying we need dialogue. I think we need dialogue among the board members. I would like to know what the board members have to say about this budget. We're going to have, this is a public hearing, and yet I have to read little snippets in Dave Shaw's articles or in the Weber today, or to understand where you're coming from, because it doesn't come out in these meetings. I heard, and reading the minutes from the August meeting of the Waste Management Committee, I learned something. Things are not, so from my point of view, that's what transparency is. Yes, we have differences of opinion. Transparency is learning about them, discussing them openly. But it seems to me that what's happening is 2 people make a decision, talk individually to others. We don't know if those others agree or disagree. We can't hear what people's opinions are. How do we make decisions as townspeople if we are without information? It's a process that I hope will change so that we will in fact have open town government. You listen to the people, then you go off and have a decision made. And often it's under the, it's executive session because of attorney privilege. We can't discuss these. But there are major differences of opinion about which way to go that don't depend on attorney-client privilege, that have to be closed door. The Ludovico Sculpture Trail is one of them. We never heard a word about eminent domain, and then you called a special meeting about it. Never came up. I think it's a huge issue.
Thank you. Are there any other comments? Yes? And Sue, could you state your name? Well, I think you all know Sue.
Susan Savageau, Fall Street, Seneca Falls. And I apologize for being late, but some of us still have jobs, and we have this meeting at 5 o'clock, so I don't know if something that I say will have already been covered. But I was looking at your revenue page. I have to look at it with glasses, of the tentative budget that I received a few days ago. And in 2015, you had basically revenues of 2.4 million plus, and in 2016 you had 3 million plus, and we've already expended 1.7 of that for this year. The adopted budget proposal only shows 1.15, which is a 50% drop, and since this is the landfill revenue, I'm sure it isn't going to drop that much, right? So that is a huge amount of money that is going to cost taxpayers this tax hike in our rate that isn't indicated anyplace else. All the other budgets appear to have been trimmed, and maybe are being trimmed more, since I did attend one of the budget hearings and people were talking about a number of changes. But yet, the citizens are expected to pay this higher tax rate for money that they assume will be spent, but they don't know on what. It also will force us into that 2% cap override, which I notice you have on the agenda according to the paper.
Yes.
And that also costs individuals. We used to get these little checks back by meeting the tax cap. Individual citizens got small amounts that were tax breaks back from the state. Those will probably disappear if we do that. The second thing I notice, which is not related to this line, is that our village and town looks a little tacky. I think there's a lot of things that could use sprucing up that aren't extremely expensive. And I don't see anything in the budget that indicates that there's attention being paid to that. I'm thinking of the sidewalks, because I was walking around recently. We have a lot of sidewalks. There used to be an incentive that the former village gave individuals.
We still have.
If you have that, it probably could be more well advertised and maybe more money put in it, because we have a lot of terrible sidewalks that don't encourage walking or even rolling a cart. Trees, things that need to be painted, gardens, fencing. A lot of things are making us look a little shabby. And I'm concerned about that. I'm also concerned about why we're going to pay this extra money when it's not identified as to what it's going to be for.
Where'd we just put a sidewalk in the road?
Chapel and corner of Chapel and Troy. A person that removed their sidewalk a year ago, and it's right there on the school road. And it finally came to our attention, they had 4 fence posts mounted in it with tape around it. And, you know, there's kids that walk to school. It was a big, well, we're gonna take care of it, no, we're not gonna take care of it. Then they had a divorce, and finally we just said, go ahead and repair it. I mean, you can't do that, so we did. When we do see those, we had a person last week who called, they had a tree that uprooted their sidewalk in their driveway. When their son came to visit, he pulled in the driveway, the front end of the car hit the sidewalk. So, you know, as it comes up, I mean, there's a lot of old trees in town that are pushing these sidewalks out of the ground, and they're bad. I'd like to address them all tomorrow.
Well, it used to be a combination of the homeowner and the
Right.
government agency, but I'm more concerned about this I think that's something you don't have to solve at budget time to solve. But this huge amount of money not showing as a revenue is an automatic tax hike that we don't really need. And I see no excuse for that.
We will be having another special meeting for the board members to talk about the budget. All board members had part and parcel in this process, and we'll be meeting with the attorney, David, and Bev, and they'll come back with the input that they got from the department heads, and I believe the two people that came to budget workshops, and I might be wrong on a number, but that's what someone
there
told
were
me.
more people at the one I went to,
Oh,
but.
This
you weren't-
year?
Yes.
Okay, and
But you weren't
so
there.
I apologize, that's what someone told me. So, but we will be getting the input from them, and we'll make the final decision on the budget on that night. We'll be setting up a special meeting tonight for that budget discussion. And then, at that time, we'll be taking votes and discussing it. I think it was a good process this year. I think it went smoothly. And we have one more meeting, and then we have to approve a budget by November 20th, I think is the date that we have to approve a final budget by. And if we don't, the preliminary budget takes effect.
Well, it's not the budget so much as the inaccurate representation of the revenue that I'm concerned about. I looked at the front page where almost every major category is either level or dropping, yet we're going to pay twice as much
And
for just a board decision.
we will, we can address that at the, and clarify that at our meeting.
Right.
Okay, thank you. Is there anyone else who would like to speak? Seeing none, I'll close this public hearing. Okay. Let's take a vote. Okay, this public hearing is closed. Our next public hearing.
At 6 o'clock. It's only 5:30.
Oh, the next public hearing start at 6, and we'll go there. So we're on break until 6 o'clock. Attendance to open up our public hearing. Okay. Let's take it. Take attendance.
All right. Greg Mazzaro,
Present.
Lou Farrar,
Present.
Dave Delaney,
Present.
Dave Paretta,
Present.
Tom Rizika.
Here. Okay, this is a public hearing to override the tax cap. A local law to override the tax levy limit established in General Municipal Law 3C. Be it enacted by the Town Board of the Town of Seneca Falls as follows. Section 1, legislative intent. It is the intent of this local law to override the limit on the amount of real property taxes that may be levied by the Town of Seneca Falls pursuant to General Municipal Law, paragraph 3-C, and to allow the Town of Seneca Falls to adopt a budget for the fiscal year 2018 that requires a real property tax levy in excess of the tax levy limit as defined by General Municipal Law, paragraph 3-C. Section 2, authority. This local law is adopted pursuant to subdivision 5 of the General Municipal Law, paragraph 3-C, which expressly authorizes the town board to override the tax cap by the adoption of a local law approved by a vote of 60% of the town board. The Town Board of Seneca Falls, County of Seneca, is hereby authorized to adopt a budget for the fiscal year 2018 that requires a real property tax levy in excess of the amount otherwise prescribed in General Municipal Law, Paragraph 3, Section -C. Section 4, if any clause, sentence, paragraph, or subdivision or part of this local law or the application thereof to any person, firm, or corporation or circumstance shall be adjusted by any court of competent jurisdiction to be invalid or unconstitutional, such order or judgment shall not affect, impair, or invalidate the remainder thereof, but shall be confined in its operation to the clause, sentence, paragraph, subdivision, or part of this local law or in its application to the person, individual, firm, or corporation or circumstance directly involved in the controversy in which such judgment or order shall be rendered. Effective date, this law shall take effect immediately upon filing with the Secretary of State. Is there anyone who would like to speak on this local law? Yes.
I'm Allison Stokes, and I have a home on West Barrett Street. I just wanted to ask the question, this is the first, as I understand, we've heard about this, that a proposal for a local law to override the tax cap. The last public hearing I went to was about the Ludovico Sculpture Trail, and it began with a half-hour presentation by the town engineer, the firm, Barton and Lujudas, explaining what was the reasoning behind what they were proposing. And you've read us what you want to do and what you're going to vote on, but I have a couple of questions. Has the town board all together, discussed this? And have you heard from each town board member as a group where they could have a dialogue about this? Because as I said at the earlier hearing, I'm really concerned about as you are, and you say you are, that you're wanting dialogue and difference of opinion, and it's hard to imagine that everybody's in agreement on this. And we haven't heard why this is necessary, a rationale, the way the engineers gave the rationale for maybe taking eminent domain on a sculpture trail.
Okay, I'll have the attorney address that.
Ellison, this is the proposed local law is very, I'll use the word pro forma, basically meaning that this is something that's routinely done by municipalities. If at some point we need to do a budget, let's say that less funds come in than we anticipate, or that the expenses go higher than we anticipate, we need the latitude to deviate from what the state standard is. The state provides that a municipality, town, village, city, can do that, but only if they adopt a local law saying they're going to deviate. It's very prudent to make this application first to see if this is something that we are going to need, as opposed to waiting, passing the date, not having it done on time, and then realizing we're stuck because we can't go any higher, and now we're going to have to eliminate some services. So this is kind of like a protection to allow us more latitude to do what needs to be done in the event that we have to use it, okay? So, and it's done, from my knowledge, in the past for other municipalities. This is done practically every year. And looking back here, I can check with Nikki, but I think this was done, it was done last year and the year before.
Yep.
That was going to be my next
Yeah.
question.
Yes,
Have we
it's
done
been
this
done.
before?
Yes.
This has been done, I think,
Many years.
I can't speak to Seneca Falls because I haven't been here in this position.
Right.
But from looking at last year's, it was in there, in the year previous it was, but Nikki has been here, I don't want to give her away, but she's been here a while. Okay. But she is very familiar with it, and in fact, all this was is hitting the print on the computer and changing the date to make it for this year.
That's all I was asking. I think having information is what citizens need, and that information is helpful.
Okay.
That this isn't a response to this particular year, because it didn't seem to make sense. If all the departments are cutting back and we're going to raise our taxes, Why do we have to go over it?
If something happened, if all of a sudden a revenue stream didn't come, or if an expense came that we hadn't anticipated, and we hadn't done this, and then we had to explain to the electorate, we can't change the budget on this, we can't do anything except cut essential services, everybody would be screaming, saying, well, if you could have done that, why didn't you do it? Well, that's why we do it.
Okay, then one last question. It's my understanding we have some pretty healthy reserves. Can't you use some reserve if there's some emergency? Isn't that what a reserve is for?
Sometimes that can be done, but the town is also looking at some very big polarized issues such as revenue streams from certain operations. And if we do the math and you look at the number of years left, there has to be some kind of planning for what's going to happen when the moment comes that there isn't a revenue stream. The two choices will be, do we have the funds to take the valleys and peaks out of the budget, or do we simply have a double-digit tax increase, which everybody's going to say, that should be the last choice. That's why that reserve is being protected.
Okay, and again, that's the information that I'm asking for, because we have 8 years before the closure of SMI. And if this is partly why we're doing this, because we've already starting the pullback process, which needs to happen, then I get it. Thank you.
The last time I said something was 8 years away, I ended up paying 3 tuitions for kids in college, so.
I know, you
It came
can't.
very quickly.
Yeah, but planning, as Supervisor Lazaro said earlier, having a long-term plan is what we need to work for.
Very
Whether or not we know what's happening in 8 years. Yeah, okay.
Yes, David.
When I go up there, can I ask you, what is the tax cap percentage increase you're allowed for 2018, and how much do you project it will go up?
That will depend on what the final budget is. And we gave out the budget, we're gonna be discussing it, we're gonna set a date to have that budget discussed. That will be a special meeting. It'll be before the 20th of November, and we'll go from there.
Dave, as soon as I have preliminary ballpark figures, I can ask Bev, and I think we can come up with an approximate number. We're right at that stage where it's going to depend upon a lot of what ifs. What do the rest of the council, what do they want to do? And that will then tell us where that gauge is, where how close we're at, or where, if we're even in need of this, who knows. But as soon as I get it, Dave, I'll let you know.
Any other one? Want to make a comment on that? On this?
I have a question. If, so you're voting to override the 2% tax cap. Is there a maximum cap? Or is it just, if,
We're voting to override it.
I understand that, but-
I would hope that we don't override it by 10%.
that's what I mean, is there a limit?
No, we're voting to be given the option to
To
override it.
We're not voting,
That's-
we're not gonna override it unless we
Yeah.
have to, but at the same
That's
time,
right.
we need the permission to do it, and that has to be done on a yearly basis according to state law by a certain date. So at this point, this is I'll say it's a prophylactic measure. We're trying to just say, we've got this device if we have to use it. And
But I'm
hopefully-
saying if you do override it, then there's no limit.
Oh, no,
Not that I'm aware of. No one's ever asked that question, so I don't know.
Okay.
And I've been on the county board and this board, and no one's ever asked that question. I would hope we would be responsible in what we did if we needed to override it, and I would hope it wouldn't be the sky's the limit. And it's usually limited, and most boards do that, because I'm sure I'd have a hellstorm to pay.
The last time I asked for a description of the formula, I was asleep before the person ended speaking, so. It's very bizarre, but it's definable, and you have a good question. And I will go through this with Beth and make sure that there is an answer to that before this is adopted. So we're not here to adopt it tonight.
The cap, though, is it 2%?
There's a requirement that if you're going to be more than 2%,
More than
the
2%,
override,
we
then
need
you
to
have
take
to
advantage
have
of it.
permission to
Okay,
do it,
so, okay.
and that's what we're doing.
2% and under, we wouldn't need to use it.
I think that's a correct answer, but the word, when you see the statute, when you read it, you'll read it and you'll say, what did they just say? And you'll go back and read it again, so it's a little complicated.
Any other one want to speak to this? Yes.
Just a question. So is it my understanding that we're hoping to have the budget finalized by November 20th?
It has to be,
Okay.
it has to be approved by November 20th, or we go with the preliminary budget as written in this document tonight.
So I guess my question is, have our 5 councilmen discussed the budget together? And I mean, is it feasible that we're going to be ready by November 20th? Have you guys communicated and spoken with each other?
It'll be ready. This is the process that's gone on with a couple of tweaks every year for the last X amount of years that I know of, that I've lived in Seneca Falls. So it always goes down to the last minute, just like county budgets do. And it might not be the best process, but that's what boards have done for a long time in the county and in this town and in other towns. So it sounds like a rush process. I don't believe it is, but usually budget is you say, okay, it's budget season in September. Budget season should be a year-long thing. And but with all the other issues that we have that come up, budget season means, September, and then October comes along, you present the budget, and it's time frames, and the state is very selective in those time frames, and we have to adhere to them.
I mean, I guess just as constructive criticism, I wish that the 5 of you had, regularly met or all attended the budget hearings so that we might be in a better place right now, I guess, personal opinion.
Sometimes it's counterproductive to do that. And I found in the past that what happens is that by the time you get to an actual vote, the parties are so polarized on issues that it makes actually going together and getting an agreement on the budget more difficult. One of the devices we sometimes use is to try to diffuse that, which we used this year, and I think it's worked well. And I think at the end of it, the department heads will certainly have their opinions of it, and the people will have their opinion of it. I'm hoping that at the end of this, there will be some people who actually say, next year we should try this again because it's worked very well. So let's see how it works.
Anyone else? Okay, this budget hearing is closed. I'd like to call, since we took attendance for this, I would hope I could forego attendance for our regular meeting. But we'll all stand and say the Pledge of Allegiance in a moment of silence, especially think about the people who were lost and hurt in the church slain in Texas. Thank you. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Before we get to our regular meeting, I want to make some comments. Once a year, we have our biggest exercise in democracy, and that's called elections. And I've always said, elections have consequences. I want to congratulate the winners of that election, and I look forward to working with our present board member, Dave DeLalis, and our newly elected board member, Doug Avery. We look forward to working with you on issues and concerns in Seneca Falls. In saying that, I want to say one of the big issues that was talked about during the campaign was the issue of local law 3 versus local law 2. I've decided not to pursue anything else more on local law 2. The judge ruled that if local law 2, we would have to do a long-form environmental seeker process. I'm not going to go forward on that. I don't see it as productive because it could be overturned like any local law, and I feel it would with the majority of the board seeming to want local law 3. Since the judge stated in his ruling that we'd have to revert back to local law 3 until we got that environmental study done, I'm not pursuing an environmental study, and I would guess that would make us revert back to local law 3, and local law 3 would be back on the books without asking him a question and talking without a vote by this board. It would automatically be because of the judge's ruling.
Yes, the local law that we had was rescinded by the judge pending further development of the record under seeker. If that is not pursued, that local law 2 is no longer in existence, which means local law 2 did away with local law 3 in common terms. So if local law 3 is gone, then the other one comes back as if it was never affected. So nothing has changed. It's just what was voted before is basically still in place. It hasn't been set aside. So nothing further is required to be done, and we'll just leave it at that. It's my recommendation that we do that.
And so it would be irresponsible for us to expend any more monies on this.
Just so you understand, folks, I want to make sure you understand. If this process went through and it resulted in the court saying, okay, you've done everything fine, now I'm going to approve it, I would assume at the very next meeting there would be a request for a vote to start up a new law to set aside the present one and go back to the previous one. The only difference would be is that the town, the municipality, would be out several thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of dollars in compliance, in getting everything done. I can't justify going to outside counsel in authorizing those things if that's really the sentiment of the new boards. And typically you have a reorganization or an organizational meeting just prior to the start of the year. I sense that that's going to be the sentiment because those are the platforms that you folks ran on. So if that's the case, I think it would be irresponsible for us to expend money to do something that's just going to be set aside the following month, so why do that? And if that's the case, then, I think our supervisor is right, elections do have consequences. That's the will of the people, and that's what you do. It may change at a later date, and they may go back and say, we want to resurrect it. Well, then they will. And what we've done so far is not lost. It's still there. And if it becomes the will of the people in the future to do something different, they can go back to that. But I can't in good conscience and good faith suggest that they continue on just for the sake of continuing on and saying, there, we did it, we showed you we could do it. For what? That doesn't make any sense. So the bottom line is my recommendation has been is simply, at this point, let's just leave it alone. The other one will revert automatically, and we'll see what happens. That's what you should do. You always have to listen to the will of the people, and if that's where it's at right now, then that's what you do. That's the theory behind it. It's not abandoning anybody, and it's not favoring anybody. It's just common sense. Let's do what we can do.
Okay.
Any questions?
Okay. On to our regular meeting. Presentations. Chief, want to speak about this?
Yes.
Life-saving award.
So I was told to stand here because it's the best camera angle. Sergeant Hawker actually likes the camera, she says. So I have the honor and privilege of presenting two of my officers with a life-saving award tonight. On Saturday, October 28, 2017, at 4:37 p.m., Seneca Falls Police responded to a report of a woman unresponsive and not breathing. Seneca Falls Police Officer Ryan Camacho and Sergeant Sue Hawker were the first officers to arrive and found a 28-year-old female lying on the floor unconscious and suffering from an apparent opiate overdose. Upon further patient evaluation, Sergeant Hawker and Officer Camacho discovered that the female was not breathing, had purple lips, fingers, and was cold to the touch. Within a few minutes of being dispatched, Officer Camacho and Sergeant Hawker worked collaboratively to effectively administer 2 doses of naloxone, otherwise known as Narcan, into the victim's nostrils. The actions of these 2 officers, beginning with their quick response, availability, and training to naloxone, resulted in the female beginning to breathe again and soon after regain normal consciousness. The female was further treated at the scene by North Seneca Ambulance and transported to Geneva General Hospital for additional treatment. The Seneca Falls Police Department has been carrying naloxone kits since November 2014 when Seneca County Health Department provided the department free training and the kits. And I just wanted to clarify what Narcan is and what it does. So Narcan is a proven life-saving prescription medication for people at risk of immediate death from an opiate overdose, including heroin and other prescription painkillers. Naloxone blocks the effects of opiates and reverses an overdose. It cannot be used to get a person high. If given to a person who has not taken opiates, it will not have any effects on him or her since there is no opiate overdose to reverse. So at this time, I'd like to have Sergeant Hawker and Officer Camacho come up. We'll be ladies first. And this is a plaque awarding Sergeant Hawker with a life-saving award. This is Sergeant Hawker's 3rd life-saving award in her career. And she will also receive second, Officer Ryan Camacho, and this is Officer Camacho's 1st life-saving award. Congratulations.
Okay, getting on to petitioners. We have first petitioners John Van Neal and moratorium on commercial solar projects. Mr. Van Neal, welcome.
Let everybody leave first. Hello, my name is John Van Neal, and I live at 1697 Gravel Road here in Seneca Falls. I'm here tonight to ask the board to place a moratorium, a temporary moratorium.
Excuse me.
Yes, sir.
You get approximately 3 minutes to
Gotcha.
speak. Okay,
That's
thank
one.
you.
I'm here to ask the board to place a temporary moratorium on large-scale solar arrays in Seneca Falls until specific zoning is adopted to protect the health, safety, and integrity of our community. In case you don't know, large-scale solar is actually new to New York State. It's only been about 2 years since we've had solar projects of this size here in the state, so there's been no need for zoning in the past, and currently none exists here in Seneca Falls. I'm not the only one suggesting Seneca Falls adopt solar zoning. The New York State Division of Local Government Services recommends that all municipalities adopt specific zoning for solar. At a more local level, the Seneca County Planning Board wrote at their September 14th meeting of this year that, quote, Seneca Falls and other communities within the county should move forward in developing regulations for all zoning districts for solar installations above 25 kilowatts. Effective zoning helps protect property values. Zoning helps preserve the character of neighborhoods and even whole communities. When Geneva enacted solar zoning 2 years ago, they included provisions for vegetative screening. The town of Schuyler passed zoning this summer that includes rules for signage and fencing. And last month, Waterloo enacted a 9-month moratorium on permits for large-scale solar partly to explore any potential health risks that they pose to residents and to ensure proper rules for decommissioning sites after they are no longer operating. Solar arrays are exactly the type of development that lends itself to zoning. They have a large footprint. The artificial panels are considered unsightly by many persons. They have large reflective surfaces that may increase ultraviolet light exposure. And since they generate electricity, state law requires that they be fenced, which may change the flow of wildlife or change the character of an entire neighborhood. Simply put, solar arrays are so different than any other type of development that they deserve to be specifically addressed in the town code. Solar-specific zoning does not have to be complicated to be effective. The time to act is now, before any permits are issued. It costs us nothing to be prudent. Thank you to the board for hearing my proposal.
Thank you, sir.
So I stay here for questions.
Anyone have any questions?
Our zoning board and planning board, they both have what, 2 companies come before them?
It's yes.
2?
Well, there's 3 now.
3 now?
One has applied an application for Alden Road.
Is it too late to do a moratorium?
For those 3, yes, because they've
That's
already
what I'm
paid.
afraid of. That's what I'm asking.
Yeah,
So if we do a moratorium, those 3 still can
can follow through.
plan through. Okay. I think that's what I told you on the phone. I think you called me once, John, I said I was afraid that we had 2 at that time.
Even if we have the discussion, we're brand new to this local government stuff, and I feel a little bit bad that I haven't been involved my whole life, but it's interesting to watch the zoning board and the planning board try to wrestle with these issues and predict what is in the town's best interest, because there's no rules set before them. So they have, in the process of discussion, tried to hold the parties to a higher standard than nothing, because there's nothing in the zoning. But even if we have this discussion of what we want to have in the future, what we would like to hold these companies to, I think the boards, without a moratorium, if that's the case, can still, the planning board can still hold them to that. I mentioned screening, for example. There's no town provision for screening, but the planning board keeps asking them to put screening in place. So I think having some sort of a discussion at the town level will give the planning board and the zoning board some understanding of what the will of the people is, I guess.
John, I think you'll find that the planning board, with the applications presently pending, and the zoning board, planning and zoning together, it's certainly up to them before they grant any permission to include whatever protective measures they think are needed. And I know from speaking at length with having conversations with the chairs of each and having participated in the last several combined meetings, that's precisely where they're going. So part of that process is also going to be the implementation of requirements and considerations into our local law. And we're hoping that the process that we're using right now will actually bring those rules and regulations in as part of the process of granting any permits. So that's what you're concerned about is being done anyway.
Yeah, so what I'm asking for is going to happen even if the moratorium doesn't happen, is what you're trying to
moratorium,
say.
it doesn't make any difference. We're still going to, our people are on those boards are here right now, and I know the same questions have come up. They have, I believe, every intention of including restrictions, measures, safeguarding with regard to any such project. So even if it's not something that we have a regulation for, it doesn't mean we can't make it a condition of. So,
And I don't mean to take up any extra time, but that's the question that I can't seem to get answered. If it's not in the town code, and they don't comply, they agree that they're gonna comply to it, and then they don't further, I know what to do when somebody's in violation of code, I know who to call. But I wouldn't know what to do if,
it's going to be as part and parcel of their permit to do it,
so it's still, it holds the rule of law, the same as
Absolutely.
zoning would?
because that was the condition upon which they got it.
Gotcha.
Okay? We're there for you. We're-
Yeah.
And those two boards, I think, are well intentioned on what you're doing.
I believe you are correct as well.
Well, John, I can speak as far as environmental. I think it's good, but these solar farms, they're gonna be put in. If they're put in, we're using valuable land, and what are we gaining out of it? I mean, I asked them that night here if we can get electricity for Seneca Falls. Well, no, we can't do that. Well, okay, you're gonna use all this acreage and have a pilot or no taxes on all this, or that land could be used for building and have businesses come in and have a tax base. As far as I know, what are we gonna get out of it? Are we gonna get a tax base out of this too? But we're gonna lose out.
That may well provide a tax base from the revenue aspect.
Well, this is my concern too.
It's up to the board to do that.
Yes. But I think it's fine that there is a revenue aspect to it, and I'm sure that will be explored.
Thank you, sir.
Thanks, John.
Our next petitioner is Robert McGill on air quality monitoring.
Robert L. McGill Jr., 32 East William Street, Waterloo, New York. Last month I mentioned that the concerned citizens and other groups have wanted air quality monitored, and they've done that, but we've never actually got the results. It's never put in the paper or publicized in any way. I believe the results of their testing were considered inconclusive. Well, there's a reason for that. I showed you these last month. Hydrogen sulfide monitor, 10 parts per million to 15 parts per million, usually used in an enclosed space like a manhole. At 10 parts per million, trying to monitor open air, this is worthless. So I chose to use a CO2 monitor and a methane monitor. Now, according to the EPA, landfill gas is 40 to 60% carbon dioxide and 0 to 1% sulfides, hydrogen sulfides, sulfur dioxide. So I figured 40%, 1%, it's a 40 to 1 ratio. So with a CO2 monitor, I've been going around town taking samples. My highest reading was at the boat launch at Cuba Lake State Park. The organic material in that lake gives off methane, CO2, hydrogen sulfide, and actually emits more carbon dioxide and methane than any other source, including the landfill. My methane monitor is totally worthless. It is so accurate, it isn't funny. If I even light my lighter near it, it goes off and will register at 3,000 parts per million. But at the landfill, I get 0 readings. No methane at all. I can't detect any. Because normally, the methane, using the same formula, 40 to 1, the methane will come in at approximately 0.33 parts per million. These handheld monitors and field equipment will not measure anything less than 1 part per million. and I did say I got 1.7 actually, so this is very accurate. The CO2 monitor is very accurate. The problem is, there's an absence of gas. There's an absence of any sulfides, any methane, very little to no CO2. I can tell when everybody gets up in the morning. I take a reading in Village of Waterloo and I get about a 420. As soon as people start getting up and get ready for work, it goes up to 450. I go out to the landfill, I get 410, 420, 395. I'm actually getting lower readings in both methane and CO2 at the landfill. And hopefully that makes the press, Mr. Shaw. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. McGill. Going on to number 4, approval of minutes for the public hearing and meeting October 3rd, 2017.
I'll make a motion to approve.
I need a second.
I'll second it.
Discussion. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion passes. I need approval of the minutes from the budget workshop on October 12th, 2017.
I'll second.
I need a motion first.
I'll make a motion.
Okay. Discussion. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion passes. Reports. A report from the dog control officer. Dale, do you have anything to add?
No, I just picked up 3 dogs last month, one of which is going to set bag and markets off again, because it was a 911 call, the man was dead, and I took the dog and made the misfortune of writing up a DL-18, which of course, very hard for the guy to reclaim the dog. So, I've decided not to do DL-18s on anything but other than a seized dog that's reclaimed. That apparently is why we got an unfavorable report from the Ag and Markets for only the second time in the 25 years since I started the shelter. And the problem is with the paperwork not being complete. It's very hard for a dead man to complete a DL-18. So needless to say, it's not filled out. And apparently that's unacceptable to Ag and Markets. So my theory from now on is I probably won't be filling out a lot of DL-18s. And as I told you before, Mr. Foster, it's, I work at the pleasure of the board, and I will do nothing to bring dishonor under the town of Seneca Falls, but the Beverly Animal Shelter will continue to take in any dog it feels needs help, regardless of whether state forest is still on or not.
I met with Dallin when we first got the report and went through it. It seems to me that, I think something that you left out, that particular person doing the report.
It's the same guy that did it 25 years ago, and I thought he was dead, but unfortunately.
It seems that the person had the same objections 25 years ago as he did this time and came back. I think the finding is somewhat of an anomaly. I think it's kind of strange, but everything else in the report.
Everything related to the animals was fine.
The things you'd want to know about the animals, are the pooches and the kittens being taken care of, fed, given everything you need. All that was checked, yes, 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 yes. And we came down to a report that's missing something on a technicality, and therefore said that they were not in compliance. My perspective after reviewing it, I think Dallin is doing an excellent job, and would congratulate her on running a very, very good operation.
Thank you, I appreciate it, but like I say, it's always at your disposal.
And thank you very much for coming down and addressing that with Mr. Foster as soon as you received my phone message.
I have not come back for a second.
And we understood that, we understood your predicament, and that's why Mr. Foster took it over. Thank you for coming right down.
Thank you.
So I make a motion to approve the dog control officer
I'll second.
report.
I'll second.
I need a motion first.
I'll make a motion.
Second.
Second.
Discussion. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion passes. I make a motion to approve the zoning officer report.
I'll
I need-
second it.
I need it first.
I'll make a motion.
What? No, I make a motion.
Lou made the motion.
Okay, motion made, seconded, discussion. Have anything to add, Dean? No. Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion passes. I make a motion to approve the Commissioner of Parks and Recreation report. I need a motion.
I'll make the motion to accept it.
I need a second now.
I'll second it.
Discussion. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion passes. I'll make a motion to approve the Highway Superintendent's report. Now I need a second.
I'll second.
Second it.
Discussion. Jim, you have anything to add?
Yeah, Greg, the Noble Road Ditch project is, been completed as far as tying both the ditches in. We finished it up tonight for a meeting. All we got left to do out there now is blacktop, the crossovers, and one driveway, and we'll be done with that. The phone lines at my department were out of order for the last 2 days. Verizon did come today. We had a broken wire up in, on the telephone pole, so that phone lines are back on today. And I'd just like to remind everybody that the Fall Rush pickup is next week. If they could have it out the road by this Sunday, that would be helpful. That's all I got.
This is Jacob Laney.
Yes.
Are we all in agreement with this? It's going to happen here.
Oh.
I see water container got their $7,500. Is that correct in that?
Yes, what happened was the bridge lighting on Bridge Street Bridge, we've had nothing but problems with it. I've had meetings with and the owners of the people that we bought the lights from, Jacob Lighting. To light that bridge up the way the picture was sent to us would cost us about $150,000. And I knew the town wasn't going to go for that. So what the owner of the company, Bill, decided that he would give back $7,500 to water the container, and the other $7,500 would be gave back to the town in a 2-year process, $3,500 in 1 year, and then the next year, to make up our $7,500. When I always purchase the LED lights for downtown, because we're switching them over. He'll deduct that from our bill, and that way, the $15,000 that we paid for those lights will be returned to everyone, and they're going to wash their hands from that. And we will be able to keep the lights and use them as we choose to. It's up to the board to make the decision how they want to proceed with that.
On this year, we got to make a motion to accept this to the board.
We'll accept the report from the board and accept the body of what's in the letter.
Highway letter.
Yes, the letter to Annette, and we'll accept that. Okay.
Okay,
we'll
so I
accept
can
it.
make a motion to do that, or?
I think the motion to accept the highway
Highway
report
report.
and the letter.
Do it. Okay.
We'll do it.
All right. Okay.
Is that okay?
Yep,
Okay.
sounds good.
Is that okay with you, Annette? Okay. So I made a motion, it was seconded. Thank you for your report, Jim. We had discussed it. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion passes. I make a motion to accept the assessor's report. I need a second.
I'll second.
Discussion. Do you have anything to add?
We do have one action item tonight on the agenda, but I have a second action item. Governor Cuomo, in my report there at the down, terminated the 10-year exemption on the Cold War vet exemption. So we need to set up a local law to eliminate the 10-year term from that. Currently, I don't have any veterans that fall under the Cold War vet exemption, but if we don't do anything, there's only a 10-year limit then.
But it's time sensitive.
We have until March 1st to take care of it, but I don't want it to get forgotten in the future.
So that should be brought up next month?
Yeah,
Resolution.
but it has to be a local law
Local law, okay.
to rescind the 10-year term limit on the Cold War
Do we
vet
need a
exemption.
public hearing on that? It's a local law, we need a public hearing on that. So, okay, you'll write up?
We'll have to.
Okay. Anything else?
No, that's it.
All in favor of the assessor's report?
Aye.
All opposed? I'd like to throw in a resolution out this time, is that okay? To have a public hearing on 10-year exemption of the Cold War vet.
You have to be invited,
Should be.
It should.
So we should also do it next meeting, but it'll still be on file in months.
Okay, okay. I was just gonna set up the public hearing.
There is a timing issue on it, but I want to make sure that the prerequisites for the local law are all met,
Okay,
which has to be on front of everybody.
okay, fine. Okay, do you have a report?
It's very, very quick. I'll just fill the board in. And I would like to meet with our member-elect at your convenience and bring you up to speed where we're at. There's a couple of things that are cooking right now that I've been asked to look at. One of them is a request for proposals for certain items. And one of those items is insurance. The other item is banking. And the purpose of this is to try to come up with a request for proposals that perhaps will allow us to have economies of scale, some savings for pricing on either banking services or insurance. Many people, when I say banking services, they say, well, what could there be? Well, everything from perhaps having an ATM here in the building, and people come to pay and they realize they don't have something, or somebody comes here and is given a fine by the court, has to leave, come back. Part of banking services may include the installation of an on-board ATM here. Also paying things such as taxes, paying water bills. Some people have expressed an opinion about paying things online as opposed to having to come in. Those are areas that a request for proposal would include to banking, various banking services that do business in Seneca County and specifically in the town of Seneca Falls, that they may be able to propose some package deals which basically saves the town money, saves us time, labor, archiving, and at the same time gives us some benefit. Same thing with insurance. We have various insurance issues. Sometimes various agencies may want to bid that and look at it and say that they have a plan to offer us something which is going to save money. The second thing is that one of the things when I came on board in checking this, we didn't seem to have what's called an ethics law. Many municipalities have that. Certain things can arise where at some point there may be an issue where something should be referred under the ethics law for any members, any people of the board. There are certain instances that arise in the course of the normal course of doing business where sometimes through either inexperience or exuberance or whatever, people may start to run afoul of certain rules and regulations. Sometimes having an ethics law, a committee made up not of members of this body, made up of civilian people, members, sometimes provides a very good foil for dealing with certain conduct, certain activities, whatever, but I'd like to put something together. We did so in the last municipality I was in, and I think it has a good impact, but again, for discussion, it's something that we'll throw out to the board and to the public for discussion. And finally, we're dealing with some easements right now for various items such as sewer compliance. These are really old issues that predate my being on the board, and I'm working with our former council for the town on putting together a gathering and getting filed whatever easements are necessary to implement. There was a grant recently given to the town. We're just trying to get for water and sewer the various easements that need to be in place for things to happen. So that's a project I'm working on presently. So that's all.
I make a motion to approve the report from the town attorney.
I'll second it.
Discussion, all in favor?
Aye.
All opposed, motion passes. I make a, do we have one for the town justices? Okay, there's no report from the town justices this month, so we'll move on. I make a motion to approve the report from the Water and Sewer Department.
I'll make the motion.
I made the motion, we need a second. Second. Discussion.
Yes.
Joe, just, you've been working on a couple of projects
Well, I just want to
this
mention
week,
one that.
last week and today.
Right.
Want to speak on those two?
No, a different one.
Okay, a different one. Go ahead.
Yep. Center Street. Our Water and Sewer Committee is aware that there's been some flow and pressure issues on Center Street for the water. It is now not when we have to do this now. We need new water main, new services to these homes. It's inadequate. There's no fire protection at all. If you open the hydrant, enough water doesn't even come out like the sink should come out of the hydrant. So we need to get with the engineers and the committee or the whole board, or whatever it takes to get Center Street a new water main and new services to these homes. It's an old 4-inch main that's probably over 100 years old. It's probably down to maybe an inch and a half will be my guess, all in all.
Joe, would this affect the flow in my neighborhood over in my ward?
I think the old system, that all these pipes that are old and undersized, that street, I don't know if it's affecting yours, but just being old and being too lubricated, restricted everywhere in this town. So really we have to come up with a plan to start.
Since that break, I've been getting calls that.
Yeah, well, as soon as that break happened, all the flow went south. Now the flow is coming back normal. Everybody's getting rusty water, and everybody's paying attention a little more. But
The flow will increase.
the flow is decreased because of how old the system is, though. And we need to start somewhere. We have to start at Center Street because it's inadequate. But there has to be a plan.
So when you say no control for fire, you mean hydrants or whatever?
Those hydrants on Center Street, the fire department's going to have to go back further, and they know this. We let them know when our hydrants aren't supplying enough flow. But we have to come up with a plan to start and just do a street in a year if we can, and start doing like other communities do, and do the water, do the sewer on that street, and do the curbs, or else everything's going to keep breaking, and people's basements are going to get flooded, and rusty water, and we're still going to have this old infrastructure.
So, and Center Street project was the highest priority.
It's immediate.
Immediate.
I mean, we can have the engineers get involved and do testing, and we can do flow tests and everything, but it's bad. And then change the subject on that, the I&I issues with the inflow and infiltration that we're working on. These rains that we've been getting, people are calling up their homes or backing up. They think the system, they think there's blockages. There's just too much water trying to go through the pipes.
We got the plant wide open, we got the tower open. That tower is leaking as soon as there's over 8, 10 feet in it, then we have to make reports. So that's raw sewage going on the grass, you know. So that I&I is also a priority one. So we have all these new things coming to us, like the 318 project, the 414 area. We can handle the flows during regular flows. As soon as the rain happens, all this inflow and infiltration, the system is not capable of handling all this during rain. These things have to be addressed, especially Center Street immediately. So we have to get together, whoever, and figure out how we're going to do it.
Such a 414 flow, if we get through with the Ludovico Trail, we think that will relieve some of that.
That was definitely. The Ludovico Trail, I don't know if people realize is, now we don't have to go down Fall Street and interrupt all them services, all them curbs. Same thing on Bayer. You know, you're eliminating all of that. Absolutely, that'll help, but still the inflow has to be addressed. Maple, I can't remember all of them right now, but there's many places that were identified during the studies.
That's right.
Oh, the last range. So these things need to be addressed, especially Center. I mean, tomorrow, Monday, we should be having a discussion with the engineers of how to move forward on that.
Well, I'd like to thank you and Jim Peterson on this, because I had quite a few calls, and I called you too, and you know, tried to take care of the problem and talk to the homeowners, and I commend you for that.
Well, this board and the townspeople would like to thank you on the water main break last week, where the whole town lost water. The other 3 townships south of us lost water. You worked on it round the clock. Got about 3 hours of sleep at 5 o'clock in the morning. Came back, worked on it, finally had the problem fixed, at least in water back to the homes. There was a boil alert for the next 2 days, I believe, 2 days in town here. But you worked on it until it was fixed. You worked on another problem over on Baird and Mechanic Street today. Thank you for the hard work there. And I would suggest you start meeting with the engineers, meeting with the Water and Sewer Committee, and we'll make some recommendations at our December meeting, get working on that immediately.
So we need to meet Monday, Tuesday,
okay.
Tomorrow, whatever it takes.
Yeah, I have one meeting at 10:30.
Engineers have to be
Yeah,
addressed.
why don't you work that out with the engineers and our schedules, and we'll get that meeting going, okay?
Can I ask one question of Joe, just
Yes.
for clarification? If that water problem you had, you couldn't fix immediately, how does the interconnections we did with Waterloo, didn't we do one at River Road and at Blackbrook Road? How would that?
They're not done yet.
They're not done?
Those are not done yet, but we did open the interconnection on Thurber, the town of Waterloo, or the village, I'm not sure which, helped us out, and they opened the interconnect when we first discovered the water main break, the last week.
So eventually, when they're all up and running, that would somewhat alleviate people not having water at all. I know it would only be a temporary type
Yeah,
of thing.
but it would help. It may not have helped on that one because of how big the break was and how much water was lost so fast.
Okay.
So we still may have had boil water, but yes, the more interconnects, the better for both communities.
Okay, thank you.
When do we expect those to get connected, Joe?
That's in the lawyers and engineers.
Still there? Okay.
Blackbrook Road will be done as soon as we're told go ahead.
We have
have all
everything
the
for that,
material.
right?
The staff to handle that.
Yeah. You said, because we already got all the material for that.
All the materials there.
Any other discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion passes. Make a motion to approve the police chief's report.
I'll make a motion to do this report.
I made the motion, we need a second.
Second.
Second. Discussion, chief?
Want to let everybody know that we participated in a national prescription drug take-back day with Kinney Drugs on October 28th. And just moving forward on that, I wanted everybody to know that we have a prescription drug box in our lobby that's available for anyone at any time. They just have to bring the drugs to our office. If we're not open, use the call box, an officer will come in, allow you into the lobby, and put your prescription, unwanted prescription medication inside that drug box. The other comment I had was for Mr. Foster. We have, since we're going through some of these meetings, we have the parking issue, the local law parking issue on Chapel Street that we can maybe roll into those meetings for a local law change on that list. Yep.
Actually, it's somewhat in the works. We're just gathering documents where they've been done in the past, just so we don't reinvent the wheel.
Okay, great. Yep.
Any more discussion?
I just wanted to ask one question of the attorney, if he's aware.
Excuse me.
How we're coming on the area posting, did we ever get those signs way back when we had a meeting in July? It was before you were here, in regards to area posting. We were posting on some roads that we didn't really own. Do you know, is that, if you had any discussion about that at all? Or?
I don't think that specifically was part of it, but there were other signage issues that came up. Was that before when I came on?
It was. Chief, is the area posting been, is there any signs in place?
Mr. Foster, I did mention that to you. That has to do with the winter parking.
Yes.
You remember that conversation now? So
Yes.
we have the signs. We just have to get permission from the board to put those signs up, and we'll give permission. Winter parking is in effect now, so I should probably bring that up and remind everybody. That's been all publicized pretty well, but no, there are no parking on winter streets right now. But what it is area posting is when you come into the town, on the town streets, you have this area posting that notifies you of winter parkings and overweight on vehicles. So then we don't have to post every single street every 15 feet or something like that. You have area posting, so any way you come in, you're notified of that. It's a common practice in towns and cities.
Well, talking of overweight and stuff, I had a call the other day, maybe our zoning office can check on it. Gravel Road seems to be getting a lot of heavy trucks down through there, and I think that's only what, is it 6 tons?
I believe that we were already back to 6.
Yes. 6 tons. Seems to be telling me. I've had people telling me they've got tractor trailers coming down there.
The county has it posted at 10 on the other end of that.
Is that what it is?
It's 10 tons till it gets into our former town.
So they're coming down from 318.
Correct.
It's 10 ton, then it switches to R6.
Yep.
We're working on additional signage for that, so we work with the state, the county, and local to try to organize that signage. And part of that area posting does also apply for the overweight on town streets. And that is the area posting that we need to get permission from the board to put those signs up and take care of. It's important for us to have proper signage, or else the local law or is not enforceable. You gotta have proper signage.
I didn't realize it was 10 ton out by 318, so that's why they're turning in there probably.
Yes.
Okay. Then I can address that to the homeowner that.
No, say come down.
Yeah, well,
Once they come
they're
down.
already there, so
Yeah.
that's why.
There is a sign that the state or the county, which will, Jim, was gonna put up that says weight restriction ahead, so the truck should know. And then we have to get our signs up as the final piece of that, and then once that's all completed, then we can enforce that.
Okay.
Which I have the signs already. They're already made up, just wait to go up.
Okay.
Dave, what would we have to do for the attorney to vote? Could we vote on that now, or what would we have to do to authorize it?
We really have to do, this is a local law that amends We have to have a proper procedure for that.
Okay.
This local law is actually already in the books, the overweight and.
The overweight is.
And parking, so to get the signs up, we just have to.
Permission from the board? Can we do that now?
I don't believe you can do it by chief. The local law has to be filed eventually with the state. Because it does come down to a local ordinance, we have to amend it. So there is a procedure to amend it.
The winter parking and the overweight is on the books
It's
already.
on the books already.
Yes,
That's
we're not changing that, we're
That's
just
just a question of just having permission to do it.
permission to put the signs up, so that it's enforceable.
Can we do that tonight, or
I feel that we can, yes.
I can make a motion?
On that
that-
aspect of it, yes.
Let's approve his report, then you actually make a motion.
Okay.
Jim, is that something you're prepared to do? I know there's a lot of work involved.
Oh, that's interesting. The signpost, most of the signposts are already up. I've got to get with Stu, because we did change up a few locations on that. But the other signs have been made up, and they're just waiting to go up, so, yeah, we can get them signs up. All right.
Got a gravel road resident for whom this is a concern. Can she speak?
Yep.
We need the signs going north as well,
Yeah.
not just south, so I
No,
don't
that-
know if that's
yeah,
what
we
you
got
got
it.
in there. Okay. Grave concern is people turning into the cemetery, old people, and these trucks are coming down, barreling down, full of stone and whatever, and garbage. Garbage, if you want to monitor between 5:30 and 6:30 in the morning in the dark, you can pick up a lot of these trucks going down gravel road, north to south, yeah.
Yeah, we're aware of it, it's just getting the proper signage
Yeah.
to make it enforceable, so it's been, we've been working towards that. Like I said, we've met with state, county, and local. We've had meetings about where the signage should go, and getting with the three different entities to make sure that their signage is up in a proper
But there's
location.
no information going north, people don't know.
No.
Just
we're,
going south, right
yes,
now.
That's correct,
Yeah.
because we haven't done our part yet.
Right,
Yep.
okay. Thank you.
Ma'am, if you have any further information that you think the police chief needs, just,
That's about it.
okay, just send him an email so it's
Okay.
fresh. Okay, thank you. Okay, any other discussion on this? All in favor of the police chief's report? Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion passes. Mr. DeLeos, you have a motion to make?
Make a motion that police chief and Jim install the signage for posted tonnage on gravel road and any other roads that we might add.
Second?
I'll second.
Okay. Motion made, properly second. Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion passes. I make a motion to approve the report from Barton and LaJudas.
I'll second it.
Discussion. Pete, you have anything to add?
Yeah, a couple things. We'll be talking later on the proposal we put in for the custodial grant. I think we're on the agenda later on. Also, just to touch on Bill's point on the INI issue, the town did receive a grant. I think they'll be meeting next week. We're going to sit down and kind of provide an update to the town on where we are with financing for properties in general. And so I haven't sent our three over the board, so it's good. So that's a project we had queued for 2018. We're going to put it, for tomorrow, basically, to kick into that. So that's something we had talked about that, but as part of the urgency of it, was one of the things that we put on there.
Pete, I got a question. When we built this building, these two front doors, handicap accessible. The other day we had somebody came in a wheelchair and had to wait, get somebody to open the door for them. Why didn't we have push button doors for them at that time?
I'll find out for you, Dave.
Is it feasible? I mean, I think we ought to look into it.
Sure.
I mean, we are handicap accessible through the whole, all the way around the building, but got there, the poor lady's out there and she couldn't get in. And somebody happened to walk by and said, you know, let her in. She was using a new wheelchair. I think we ought to look into, put some push buttons.
Yeah, I can't answer that, I wasn't involved with that.
Yeah,
particular
I'm just
topic.
surprised. It was probably something overlooked when we did the building, that with all this handicap accessible laws we got out there, that we didn't have a push button for these doors here for people to get in.
Okay.
Thank you.
Any other discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed, motion passes. Any other committee reports? Okay, going on to communications, I make a motion to approve the communications.
I'll second it.
Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed, motion passes. All business, I guess there's nothing more to report from last month on the sale of condominium from surplus real properties.
Not to my knowledge.
Write off uncollectible receivables, nothing on that? Okay, Route 414 sewer line transfer from IDA to town.
This goes back to the easement issues that we have to still comply with, I believe, but until we receive an actual description of what they need. But that's still in progress.
Okay, I'm gonna move to table the reappointment of Board of Assessment Review member Gary Yancey until we have an ad out. We did? Okay.
That's for you.
Yeah, we're gonna wait a little longer and we'll do it by the end of the year. Make recommendations by the end of the year. So
We tabled that one last month, right?
yeah. Table that. I have a second.
I'll second it.
Can I add something?
Discussion.
First, quick.
Yeah.
I did put in my report that currently I only have 3 Board of Assessment Review members. If they have to reconvene, I would have to then pull from the county treasurer, which, as you know, Frank Seneca just won last night. Frank is one of my BAR members. So I couldn't pull him in, so I'd have to pull in the chairman of the Board of Supervisors or the clerk of the Board of Supervisors if I had to reconvene my BAR. So I just want to make sure the board's aware that by my board being that short, it would be difficult to hear any cases if I had to reconvene them before grievance.
Okay. Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion passes. Under new business, approval of special events.
None.
No. Okay. 2018, a preliminary budget, set a meeting date. We need a meeting to discuss. First, I gotta find my calendar.
What is our drop date, Jake?
Well, we want to discuss before the 20th. Maybe we convene on the 20th for a quick approval. I could only find my calendar. There it is. Okay.
Monday the 13th.
This is coming Monday. How about Monday the 13th?
Open.
What time is this going to be?
We can start that meeting at 5 o'clock.
Aye. Can I suggest that we have Mr. Doug Avery in with that?
Sure. Yeah.
In with that?
Thank you. I would expect him to be here. Friday the 17th. Fridays usually aren't good days. Do you have any other date that you could attend a meeting that week? How about the 16th?
What do you need another meeting for?
Well, just if we do. I'm not saying we will, but just,
I was going to say,
Another backup
make
date.
changes and
Yeah.
pass the budget that
The
night.
evening of the 16th, if you need it.
yeah, the evening of the 16th. What would be a good
What
time?
day is that?
That's Thursday.
Thursday?
It's not a court night, is it?
Oh. Might be. I don't,
I can't remember if they have a court night.
the first Thursday is bad, but I don't know. Sure. Well, we can set it and then check.
Is that
it.
quarterly, chief?
The 13th we can change it.
I'm not sure what the court dates are.
We can change it.
Yeah, okay. We'll have the one on the 13th, and if that's a court date, we'll change it on the 13th. If we need to know the
Well, I
date.
got down here October 12th, 17th, that was budget, so I don't think it was a court date on that Thursday, because we did that.
Not October, November.
Yeah.
Don't know. What time on?
Yeah, but that's what I'm saying, so I think the 13th, or 16th should be okay.
Yeah. Okay, we'll set one for the 13th at 5 o'clock, and we'll look at a backup date as the 16th, or something to be determined at the 13th if the 16th is no good.
Greg, there is I have on my calendar with me for the budget.
On the 13th?
Yeah.
Okay, that'd be 4:30, 5:30, so we could set up on 5:30
On the 16th?
on the 16th, on the 13th, 5:30 on the 13th.
5:30 on the 13th.
Yep.
And 5 on the 16th, right?
Yeah. Okay. Okay, I make a motion to propose local law number 420 for 2017, overriding the 2% tax cap. So I made a motion, I need a second.
I'll second it.
Discussion. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? Motion passes. For the training? Okay. So I make a motion to approve the training for the water and sewer clerk at $120 an hour, and mileage is 82 miles, so that would be 43.87. So that would be a total of 163.80.
No, that's just for an hour, so it probably is more than that.
Okay.
So we don't know.
We don't know how long that'll be though, that training, so I make a motion for the price for that $120 an hour, and the mileage note would be, at 535.535 per mile, which would be $43.87. So I make a motion to approve this.
I'll second.
Discussion. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion passes. Appoint Historic Preservation Commission member. Who's that?
Right there. Yeah, right there. Where else? Check the, check the. This one told you, you have an appointment, so we can perform, because take place out of, it's moved.
I make a motion to approve Charles Chuck Jenko as a member of the Historic Preservation Commission.
I'll second that.
Discussion. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion passes. Chief, before I make a motion, I'm going to ask you to talk about this Covert Security Incorporated that you sent to us. You looked into it?
Sure. So I was asked to look at a new camera system for the highway building property over on 130 Ovid Street, 187. So I met with Pete Colbert and Jim at that property and obtained a quote from Colbert Security and sent it to the board for further consideration.
Can we ask questions, or do I have to do that during the discussion?
No, if anyone would like to table this for one more month, we can do that. And again, we don't have a camera system out there at this point, so we have to be cognizant of that this would take some time putting in also. And review this and ask questions. I would deem that appropriate at this point, and then make the motion. And if they felt it was appropriate, to make that motion, and the price of it, which is $14,190. So if anyone wants to make that motion to table it,
This is the first I've heard of it.
recognize it.
Jim, is there anything wrong with the system we got now?
The system we've got right now is 4 years old. We paid pretty close to $14,000-15,000 for that. There's nothing wrong with that system whatsoever. It works very well, and there's no problem whatsoever up there. The reason that Woody put that system in, and I've got pictures, because we had a lot of residents going out to the dumpster site.
Oh, I remember that.
And this is that's why that system went in. And I just can't see spending $15,000 taxpayers' money on a system that there's nothing wrong with the one that I've got up there. It works fine. It's all lit up at night, all the way around that building. Seneca Falls PD is in and out of there. They come at night for fuel, in mornings for fuel. They check my shop all the time, so the security up there is wonderful.
I'm thinking back when Woody was on, showed me a video of a guy pulling an S10 in from Waterloo. He threw 2 manhole covers in the back of his pickup truck, and it was very clear. They even got the license plate number of that truck. That's why I'm questioning why we need a new system.
Well, there's why it was brought, why Stewart.
What's going to be different with this one than a new one's going to be? I understand that.
The system we got right now works fine up there. So I can't see spending another $15,000.
What's the turnaround time on the system that we have up there now?
As far as what?
How long are the tapes?
9 days.
9 days, okay.
This new one, according to the paperwork I got, is 12 days. So we're looking at 3 days.
And you have to go and pull the cameras, and it has no feed on a computer. You have to go and pull the cameras to
No.
see it? No?
No.
Can you explain? We have to-
Well, Pete said that he could come in and pull the footage if you ever wanted it, right off of there. It records for 9 days. You've got it recording for 9 days on that.
No. wasn't one of the cameras broken up there and no?
At one time it was fixed.
Okay, but well, we needed some camera footage. Wasn't it broken, isn't that what you said?
There was one camera inside the shop that was not operating at the time we went up there.
Okay, and how do we, I think these questions will need to be answered in the next month, so I'm gonna move the table in a second, but how do we ensure that all cameras are in operational mode? Can we do it without literally checking them now? And if we get this new system, couldn't we check it remotely, whether they were working? So there's a fail-safe system where.
I have that on my phone. When I'm home, all I gotta do is punch my code in and I can see whatever's going on at that shop, and I look all the time. It's right on my phone.
But the camera was broken and we didn't find out until we tried.
The camera inside the shop was not working. But all the rest of the cameras on the outside of the building, all those cameras were working. So at any time, all I gotta do is punch that code in my phone, and I can look at anything. I can look and see who's around or anything right off my phone. Yes.
So I guess we need some internal controls, not only those cameras, but all cameras that are utilized for safety and utilized to check the areas. We need some internal controls to see that they're being checked.
Which I do.
At a periodic basis, but when we went to check the inside camera, it was broken. It wasn't in working condition, correct? So I know you do check them and I know you do a good job, but that one, something went wrong.
That's correct.
Okay, so we need better internal controls, and which would, my question is, which would give us better internal controls? Is it necessary to expend this amount of money?
No.
So on and so forth. But we need a system because of that security breach, so to speak, that happened. Because the camera was broken and no one knew. We have to talk in the next month about internal controls on how to ensure that those cameras are continuously working and finding out as soon as possible when one does go down, so we don't have that breach again.
That system.
Not only that one, but.
But the system in my office is right there. I've got the cameras right there in my office. I know which camera is down if one does go down. So every time I walk in my office, it's displayed right there. And like I said, I've got it on my phone. If you did go ahead, according to the paperwork that I got, and bought this new system again for $15,000, it's gonna be pretty much the same system, in the same way. It's gonna be hooked up to my phone, and the monitor's gonna be sitting right over by my desk where it's monitored now.
So who's gonna have access to all this then? No.
Well, there needs to be some kind of internal controls to see who has access to this, and we work that out with, I guess we work that out with the chief and any department head who had a camera system for security.
How are we gonna do this with water and sewer and everybody else too?
Well, I would look into that, yes. I think that's important nowadays. And again, nothing happens until something happens, and this problem arose because something happened and one of the cameras wasn't in working order. I'm not asking to approve this tonight, but I think that we need to take safeguards against the camera breaking down. One camera did break down. No one's at fault. I'm not saying anyone's at fault, but I'm saying security was compromised because that camera was down for a certain period of time, and no one knew it until.
I knew it. That's why we got a whole feed.
Okay. You knew it when, okay. We'll discuss it over the month. I moved to table this.
Right. I would like to say that we would like to have something like that at the plant and Oak Street.
Okay.
Definitely. Or one of the plant is not sufficient.
Okay.
So we would definitely like it, and we would like it to be able to be monitored somewhere else.
Okay.
This would be the wastewater treatment plant.
Wastewater treatment plant.
That's the water plant too.
Well, I don't speak for the water plant, but the wastewater plant and Oak Street are the two places that I control. We would definitely like to have it,
It makes
especially
sense.
there's not many people around Oak Street.
Well, our water supply obviously would make sense to have.
And water supply, sure.
As well, so
We
I guess
can work down with, yep.
hopefully we can get those questions answered.
Any of those locations, cameras would be very useful if anything did occur, so, you know, any properties within the town should have some sort of security camera system.
Would,
And there should be some up at salt barns too.
with this budget item from each department then?
I think it might be, we might have to go and look for it someplace else. You know, I mean, those are the questions that have to be answered.
They can also see other things going on.
Yeah, I've got a motion to table.
I'll second that motion.
Is there any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion passed.